CJ Marks here. Welcome to the Confidence Series. Okay, most folks here have actually been on an airplane at some point in time in their lives. But, have you ever thought, what would it be like to be a pilot? I did. So I thought I'd ask a good friend of mine. This man has flown everything from U.S. military jet fighters to commercial airline pilot. Jay, thanks for joining us, bro. You well?
I'm doing great, CJ. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Oh man, thanks for blessing us, man. And this guy, great storyteller, good man. So let's jump right into it. First question, Jay. What is confidence?
What is confidence? All right. Everybody knows what confidence is, right? So I kind of like to think about the process behind it. Okay. I think it's a lot like sitting in a chair. Right? You sit in a chair over and over and over again, and it holds you. So eventually you just trust it. You have confidence that chair is going to support your weight. So I think confidence is pretty much the same. It's trusting in yourself. So repeatedly knowing that you can do something or handle a situation over time creates the trust that you can. I think it's kind of like an internal process of subconsciously evaluating yourself, right? And eventually that evaluation gets better. It gets good, and suddenly you realize, hey man, I'm capable, right? Or I can even exceed expectations. So just over time, that internal evaluation you have develops trust in yourself, and suddenly you just find yourself more relaxed. It's an emotional and mental belief that you're capable, if that makes sense.
Makes complete sense, man. Fantastic answer. Thanks, Jay. Thanks. Yeah, wow. Second question, man. All right. When I say this man's a pilot, I mean, you can see the planes in the background. This man is a pilot. So let me ask you this second question. How did your time as a U.S. military Marines pilot, the training that went into that, how did that help you prepare for a career as a commercial airline pilot, Jay?
Okay, that's easy, man. The military, we train, right?
Yes.
So it's training. The Marines, and people don't realize that the Marines have airplanes.
Yeah, a lot of folks don't know that. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, so we've got infantry, we've got tanks, we've got artillery, but we have helicopters, we got fixed wing cargo, we've got the tilt rotor, and we've got fighter jets. Mm-hmm. So our jet training is shared with the Navy. And as a whole, we call ourselves naval aviators. Okay. So that the Marines and naval aviation really taught me how to break down a training event, study for it, and mentally prepare for it. And I just carried those same habits directly into the commercial airline industry. I didn't know anything about airlines, man. I didn't know anything about the planes, the operation, anything. But when I was presented with a training event, I just did what the Marines had taught me how to do. Okay. So that repetitive process of training day in, day out made it very easy for me to prepare for the commercial operation. Mm-hmm. And then most importantly, that's just to prepare for a training event for the airlines, but the real world applications, what I got out of the Marine Corps, what I got out of being a fighter pilot. We flew broken jets all the time, right? We had hydraulic and gear, electronic. We had the pressurization system. These were constant abnormalities in my airplane, and it was on a weekly basis that myself or somebody in the squadron would be declaring an emergency. Wow. And our job was to get the airplane on the ground safely, right? So literally it was every week something was happening, somebody was declaring an emergency.
Okay, these are U.S. military fighter jets declaring. That sounds pretty significant, potentially life-threatening.
Yeah, so there's flying an airplane, which is kind of commercial airlines, and then there's employing a weapon system. Okay. So when you become a fighter pilot, or really a military trained pilot of any kind, that airplane is a system, whether it be a weapon system or a logistics system or a air refueling system, whatever it may be, that becomes a primary mission. And actually flying the airplane is very, very secondary or even tertiary, right? So we fly those airplanes hard, man. The F-18, the ones behind me, that's what I flew, the F-18 Hornet. I mean, they went operational in the 80s. So they were old, really old. In fact, we're replacing them now. But yeah, we had emergencies on a weekly basis. And then those airplanes, when it's cloudy and the weather's bad, we call it IMC, when you can't see the horizon. When we're trying to navigate in a formation, you're flying. I mean, I'm like looking out my cockpit window. My nose is about 36 inches from the wingtip of the jet I'm following. Wow, so man. Yeah, and you're doing, we're doing 300 knots. You're doing somewhere around 350 miles an hour through bad weather with 4 airplanes, and everyone's just staring at the wingtip of the other guy. That's what we did on a day in day out basis with broken airplanes, and then we'd have to bring them back safely. And they weren't always broken, but they broke a lot because we put them under a lot of pressure. When we're prosecuting a bad guy, or we don't know it's a bad guy, that's the hard one. So you pick some guy up on your radar sweeping, and you get that little blip.
Okay, you said we were prosecuting a bad guy.
Yeah. So in the air to air, from beyond visual range. So, you can't see the guy, right? Okay. But your radar can. So you pick this radar contact up, and you got to figure out, is that a good guy or a bad guy? We don't know. So we need positive hostile identification of a target before we can actually shoot and employ weapons on it. Yeah. So when you pick up that guy on the radar, you're doing around 600 miles an hour. He's doing around 600 miles an hour. You're closing at 1,200 miles an hour. You have about 4 minutes from the time you get first contact on that guy until you actually come to emerge, and you guys are eye to eye staring at each other about 500 feet apart. So you get about 4 minutes to figure out what's happening in time and space, how that's going to affect you, how you want to prosecute this target, who's going to target, and if it's multiple airplanes, who in your airplanes is going to target who. So you have about 4 minutes to assess the situation, be able to identify the guy, and then employ weapons as a group against another group of bad guys. So my whole point is that happens really fast. Yes. 4 minutes, it's really fast. And that kind of iteration over and over of training and practice just helps you think fast, right? Yes. There's a guy named Boyd, and he used to, I think he was an Air Force dude, but he came up with this thing called the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act. Okay. And he was saying that the faster that you can process that cycle, you have a temporal advantage over your enemy, because if you act before he does, now he's got to observe and orient and decide based on your actions. So the one that can do that faster is going to be an advantage. So we practice that a lot. It really just means thinking fast and making a decision. But it was constant, man. It was constant. There was, as a U.S. Marine fighter pilot, it was extreme high pressure, sometimes, life or death. It was extreme fast thinking. But most importantly, we spent a lot of time debriefing and looking at our mistakes. When you do that over and over and over, day in, day out, and you get better and better, and eventually you get good at it, it's like sitting in that chair. You know what I mean? It's like, you just realize, like, okay, I can do this. And in fact, I'm getting kind of good at it. And it just builds your confidence. And so you take that into the commercial airline industry, which is a much slower operation. In fact, we don't want to be aggressive at all. So as a military pilot, I want to be super aggressive. So I just take the strengths and the processes that I learned as a Marine fighter pilot, and I bring that to the airline or operation, where I want to be smooth and safe and slow. Like I want to fly the airplane so that the person drinking their coffee, they don't even realize the airplane's moving. Well, 500,000 pound airplane, that's a lot of inertia, right? So I got to think way ahead of the airplane. I got to think way ahead of the situation to be able to manage all of that inertia and energy and the time space that I have to make it a good, safe, smooth flight for my passengers. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh man, you said so much and it all makes sense, man. Excellent answer. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Jay. Man. Yeah. Man, third question. Let me just get right. Third question. Okay, for many of us non-pilots, all we have to go off of our movies in terms, be it, military
Yeah.
fighter pilots or even commercial airline pilots. Jay, to what extent do movies actually portray what it takes to become or be a pilot?
I would say not even close. That they don't come close. It's like, it's so far and removed from reality, but it's super fun, right? It's super fun. I mean, I saw Top Gun. That's why I wanted to become a fighter pilot.
Yeah. That's right.
So they show you the emotional experience and the excitement, which is there. It's a little bit different in actual execution and how the airplanes are flown and employed, but they're fun. But the mental, the physical preparation, the selective process, they don't capture it. There's more NFL players than there are F-18 pilots. So that kind of tells you how small the F-18, the Hornet community is.
Yeah. That's a wild stat, man.
Yeah. So, you think about that, right? There's more professional football players than we have F-18 pilots. And the other thing you don't realize is like these servicemen and women, they're super young. They're like 22 years old. You finish college, you go into your military service and you start training at like 22. Mm-hmm. At the time when a commercial airline or a commercial trained pilot is just getting past learning how to fly in clouds and now is starting to learn how to fly an aircraft with 2 engines. Mm-hmm. I was flying a high performance jet and landing on aircraft carriers. So the naval aviation started me. I'd never flown an airplane before. So they started me in this single engine turboprop, and 150 hours later, I'm landing a jet on an aircraft carrier. That's how efficient. Yeah, the training is super efficient, and we don't capture that in film. Mm-hmm. The part you don't see in film is, man, the days are long. Yeah. There were long days. As an instructor in a fighter attack squadron, it's a 12-hour day of planning and briefing and flying and debriefing. And then you got to debrief the pilot under instruction on his planning and briefing and flying and debriefing. So you finish a 1 hour and 20-minute mission that costs you about 12 hours of your day. And then you go into your office. Now you got to take care of your Marines. You got to run the squadron because you may be in charge of operations or administration or maintenance or logistics or something. But the squadron's counting on you to manage your administrative workload. Mm-hmm. And then at some point you're like, okay, I still gotta be a husband and a father too. Yeah. So at some point I gotta go home, right? Yeah. They don't capture that. They don't capture like the 6 or 13 months deployments, where you're away from home. You're either on a ship or you're sleeping in a tent or some kind of logistics container, some kind of shipping container. They don't capture the nights that you spend all night in the hangar with your Marines, even though the pilots, we don't know how to fix the airplanes, right? It's a $36 million jet. I've got no training and maintenance, but yet as the officer in charge, it's my responsibility. So I'll be there all night with my Marines just for moral support, whether I'm buying them pizza or just being there as a leader. There's a lot of nights like that because the mission comes first, then your Marines, right? And you don't even get a vote. You don't count. You know what I mean? So it's like that stuff's not captured. The movies don't capture the fact that 90%, 97% of being a fighter pilot is like super hard, grueling work and a lot of desk work, actually, a lot of groundwork, a lot of planning, a lot of studying. And there's about 3% where you're like out there actually living the dream, with your hair on fire. So it's they give you the 3% and then you never hear about the 97%.
That's well said.
I wouldn't trade it though. I would never trade for every dollar in the world. You know what I mean? That 3%. Yes. There's a lot of stuff that sucks. There's a lot of, like I said, for about a 12-hour day, and that's an hour and 20 minutes of flying. Especially Marines, because we're poor, right? We sleep in tents, we sleep in mud. The Air Force, they're in their hotels and whatever, but we're poor, right? So but man, that boyhood dream, totally worth it. Totally worth it. Because you can't fly an airplane or employ it as a weapon system anywhere else in the world. So that 3%, man, is totally worth it.
Wow, man, that's cool. That's so cool. That said, boys and girls, the movies are the movies. Real
That's
life
right.
is
That's
real.
right.
Movies, the movies.
Yeah.
Jay, my next question for you, brother. You are legitimately one of the most confident people that I know, in the healthiest sense of the word, man. That said, if you'd be so kind, could you tell us a story when a time, as be it in the Marines or in the commercial sector, was there a time when your confidence was tested as a pilot, and how did you negotiate that situation?
Like I said, as a military pilot, it's tested constantly. I mean, literally from the day you enter, it's every single day it's constant pressure. It's a constant forged by fire scenario. So I would say, to kind of tie this into the confidence topic, as an airline pilot, I was making a trip over to Beijing once, and there was a sensor on the airplane.
So from where to Beijing? So
from US,
okay.
West Coast to Beijing.
Okay.
So about over the Bering Strait, one of our sensors broke, and it's a sensor that we need to fly in high altitude. Okay. So we had to go low, and by going low, it burns extra gas. It's just that's just physics of flying. So we show up to Beijing with less gas, much less gas than we had planned, with a broken sensor, knowing that as soon as we land, the airplane can't fly again, and we're going to have to bring maintenance from the US or Beijing out to fix it. Mm-hmm. But Beijing had really bad weather. It was there were hailstorms, there were thunderstorms everywhere. Our jet was broken, and we knew this coming in. We had already started our planning probably 5 to 6 hours before we arrived. Okay. So, but anyway, ultimately we had to divert. We had to divert into Inner Mongolia, and that part of the job, just everybody can do that. We're all trained for that as airline pilots. Mm-hmm. But what helped me was my experience in the Marines and that OODA loop, right? Where am I in time and space? How is time and space changing? Making a decision and then acting on it, right? And then just keep rinsing and repeating that, so I can try to get ahead of the circumstance, be faster than the circumstance, and drive what's happening versus being driven into some circumstance that I can't get out of. Mm-hmm. So where I really made my money was on the ground, right? We landed at an airport, a remote airport that had no support for us. Nobody spoke English. We had no formal contract of support with. So as soon as I got on the ground, it was like, okay, I did what the Marines taught me: orientation, situation, mission, execution, admin, logistics, security. I just literally went through this checklist in my head, mm-hmm. right? So, okay, what's happening? What are the kind of parameters that are shaping what's happening? What's my mission, which is basically keep everybody safe. Mm-hmm. And then execution, how do I do that? Well, I've got to build a team. I got to communicate, because I have to get 300 people off the airplane, onto a bus, into hotels, fed, right? I got to make sure that same thing happens for the crew. Yes. We got to make sure that the airplane gets fixed. We got to make sure that that the airplane is secure, because now we're in a foreign country where we have no experience, not just a foreign country, but a foreign airport. Yeah. It wasn't. And
did they know you were coming? I mean, given the situation, like, was it kind of like
they should have. So we have a saying in aviation, or at least in the Marines we did, that literally everybody's trying to kill you. Your maintainers, because they make mistakes, they're human. The air traffic controllers, your wingmen, right? Your flight leads, your leadership. There's 1,000 different things that can happen and drive that moment of which you're flying in to be a point of life or death. Now, this wasn't a point of life or death for the divert when we couldn't land in Beijing and we went into Mongolia, but it was just an experience of where no one else they didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
right. Sure. So, and for me, it was like, it was like I just take off one hat and put on another hat, take off the pilot hat and I put on my Marine Corps hat, and it was just like,
there you go.
I've been here like 100 different times. I mean, it was, for me, it was an easy thing. So people were very thankful for me to help expedite the situation and resolve it to where our passengers get to where their destination is. Our crew gets rested and fed and can fly again, and the airplane gets fixed. But to me, it was just another day of work. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes complete sense. Yeah.
It was just, I was like, okay, I've done this. I'm used to this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So it was a little bit of that confidence thing again. It was like, had I not had those experiences, I could have very well landed and been like, oh my God, what do we do now?
Yes.
Just waiting for the company to support us, or waiting for this airport to support us, but nobody's doing anything. So I was fortunate to have the experience to fill in those blanks.
There you go. Training, experience, and confidence. Yeah, there's no substitute for experience. That's what I always say. And
that's right.
Directly leads to confidence. Wow. Jay, my last question for you, brother, before we get to this or that, be it in the military or in the commercial sector, is there a routine that you have or something you do to help get you calm, reinstill confidence, and get you ready to take to the air? And if you do have a routine, would you mind sharing it with us?
I think mine's probably similar to all pilots, but you have to be prepared. So there's a lot of pre-flight planning. If you have to be ready. So there's the flight itself, which would be the mission. There's the airplane itself, which would be understanding all the systems in the airplane and the limitations of it. And if you don't know it, you got to know it. And if you haven't done it, then you have to visualize it. There's a thing called chair flying that a lot of pilots do, where they'll just sit down in a chair before the flight, and they'll go through every element of the flight in their mind, moving their hands and talking as like they would on the radios. And they just do it over and over and over until the body starts moving subconsciously and the hands go to the right switches and the right controls. We have this thing called aviate, navigate, communicate. Those are the priorities. You got to fly the airplane first, and then you got to put it where it needs to go, and then finally you communicate. And if you always keep that priority as you're visualizing, it develops into habits that when you get into the airplane, you can execute. And it's kind of funny because you said there is no substitute for experience, and I've always said that same thing, right? But then I caveat it with, however, you can at least help yourself out a ton with education, right? So where you lack experience, if you build your knowledge, it at least gets you to that point where you can attempt to gain the experience. So you just practice over and over and over until it becomes a habit, and that builds that foundation for you to actually just go and strap the jet on and be ready for takeoff. And then once you take off, it's like, okay, well, if I've not experienced this, what do I do? And we go back to the confidence thing, right? So experience and confidence fills in the kind of unknown blanks that may present themselves and even try to kill you. But when you lean back on the processes that you've learned over time to handle these situations, you lean on your education and the knowledge that you've used to build that foundation. It gives you the ability then to not handle any situation, because you can't, but at least to identify the threats and the risks, respond, react, and eventually overcome them. And again, you do that over and over and over, and then you feel pretty good that you can handle not every situation, but that you have the ability to manage it. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense, brother. Perfect sense, man. I like that point. Yeah, there's no substitute for experience, but educate. I like that. I got to get that from you, man. Yes. Nice.
Not a substitute, but at least.
Oh, education. You said it beautifully. Yeah. Cool. Jay, this or that, this or that. It's just no elaborate explanation, just A or B, this or that. I got 5 questions, this or that. This man doesn't just fly jets. This man is about his physical fitness. This man's in shape. So first this or that. First this or that. Push-ups or sit-ups?
No push-ups.
Oh, that was quick. All right. Second, flying a military jet with missiles, or flying a commercial airline with people?
Definitely the first.
Oh, wow. That was quick.
Well, because you said flying.
Yeah, okay, true. Yeah,
flying.
That's right.
You said flying. So
That's
just flying,
right.
absolutely, I will take the jet.
All right.
Any day.
All right, excellent. Okay. Third one. Okay, this man doesn't just fly. He's really into just physical fitness and just adventure and stuff. So surfing or bungee jumping?
Surfing.
That was quick. I knew that was coming. All right. Fourth one. Okay, so fourth one. Surfing.
Okay.
Surfing in Hawaii or surfing in Guam?
Hawaii.
All right. Last, this or that. It's kind of easy for you. I think I know what you're going to say. Wait a minute. Pete Maverick Mitchell or Ethan Hunt, both Tom Cruise characters. Maverick or Ethan Hunt?
What's the criteria? What am I? What's in the middle of the scale that I'm weighing?
Who do you like more?
Oh,
Maverick or Ethan Hunt from Michigan?
Ethan Hunt.
Ethan. Oh, wow! Surprise!
Yeah.
All right, brother. This has been everything I thought it would be and more. Jay, thanks for gracing us with your time and enlightening us with your wisdom, man. Before we get out of here, man, any closing words of advice for the people listening and watching?
I had mentioned one time in all of this, that's it, about building a team. But I really think that team, whether it's your friends, your family, your coworkers, military members, your crew, or whatever, that is an intangible that you can't train to, but is absolutely essential and critical to building your confidence. And I know in the beginning, I said confidence is an internal evaluation, which it is, because someone can tell you all day, like, oh, you did a great job, you're the best. And in confidence only comes from that internal, but at the same time, you can't really achieve anything of true importance by yourself. And so it's tied together, but not, the confidence comes internally, but the opportunity to have the experience and succeed in the moment to build that confidence, man, you need people, you need relationships, So if you're not building confidence or helping someone else build their confidence, it's kind of like, what's the point? What are we doing here? You know what I mean? So anyway, I kind of think the whole point, is to make each other better, not just yourself. Confidence is good. It's important, but that next level is getting confidence built into somebody else.
Perfectly said, Jay. Perfectly said. Brother, thank you so much for your time and wisdom. CJ Marks, Confidence Series. Take care of yourselves and travel safely. Catch you next time. Peace.
Thanks, CJ.
Thank you for your support of the Confidence Series. If you haven't already done so, please feel free to like the videos, leave a comment, and please subscribe to the page. I'd really appreciate that. Again, thank you for your support. Be as healthy as you can and travel safely.